We're going to need time. We're going to need time to absorb what we just heard. You know, the little song we say, I need time to get you out of my mind. We need time to absorb what we just hear. Because it don't sound like Jamaica. It don't sound like South Africa. No, it sounds like South Africa in the 1980s, 70s. It sounds like South Africa when apartheid was the order of business. It sounds like Gaza. It sounds like Palestine. I want to say something. Like Bedwood, I want to say something. Because we look on Gaza and we say it can't happen here. We look at apartheid South Africa and we say it cannot happen here. But I want to say one more thing. We have already lost. It is Sunday, December 21. We are remembering because this is how we prevent it from happening again. We will never forget the Zong Massacre. It's a rebroadcast with Professor Vereen Shepherd.
Mm-hmm. So we don't know where to settle, but we usually use 442 because most sources, including Professor James Walvin's book, which is called The Zong, he uses 442. Mm-hmm. So we have tended to use 442.
Mm-hmm.
And so the enslaved people would have been captured from places that now we would call the Gold Coast, which is part of modern-day Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana. Mm-hmm. And more specifically, we would say they were kidnapped from places like Aja, which is A-D-J-A, then Aga, which is A-G-G-A, and Anamabu, right? And the whole of that Cape Coast and surrounding hinterland of West Africa's Gold Coast, which I'm saying is now part of modern-day Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana. So
probably going all the way to Togo.
Exactly. And they were part of this, you know, most historians are now saying 15 million Africans, but they were part of that larger trafficking in enslaved Africans. We will never know the number because they, you know, of the way record keeping was.
And as we saw in the Zong, how records were destroyed, and we'll probably talk about that later.
Exactly. So now we know that after 5 months of, you know, staying there after they bought it and outfitting it and so on, the ship now set sail on the 18th of August, 1781.
Yes.
And normally, before the Atlantic crossing or the Middle Passage, there were several revictualling stops along the way. This time they stopped at Sao Tome on the coast of West Africa.
Yes.
And they would have taken on supplies and so on. So on the 6th of, if we are tracking it, and somebody should, maybe with somebody, I guess they should do a map of the journey.
Yes.
So we're now at Sao Tome, and they left there on the 6th of September 1781. Right? Now
we see the direction because that is southerly direction.
In fact, they went too far south, which is why the journey took 107 days. So, and they took on more Africans than they ought to for the size of the ship, by the way.
Right.
The ship was 110 tons, and from what Professor Walvin says, a ship of 110 tons should not have had more than 200 people on board. Well, he says specifically 193.
So, in other words, the 244 enslaved Africans that they had on it when they bought their ship would have been the capacity, overcapacity anyway.
Exactly.
And yet you added another 200 and other, probably more.
Exactly.
Yes. Wow.
You know?
Can you imagine the conditions?
I know. So they took on more people than they ought to. And when I say that, I'm only saying that because as a historian, I have to tell the facts of the case, right?
Yes, of course.
But just to say it like that sound like, oh my God.
I know.
Not even one person should have been on the ship. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But for the sake of the students, I'm just giving the facts as we know them from those who have written on it. So the journey was slow, we understand, and it sailed further south than most slavers did in the 18th century. So that's why after about 10 weeks after leaving Sao Tome, it arrived in Tobago, realizing it was not Jamaica, it's Tobago.
So
then
it now had
to take back its course for Jamaica.
And that's far when you look at it, from Trinidad to Jamaica. Yes.
So, Professor Walvin said that it was like between Tobago and Jamaica, it was like 100 weeks,
So this was navigational error. Do we know?
Because from what we understand, there was a lot of navigational error because the captain, Collingwood himself, was inexperienced, and so was the crew. They were just hastily gathered.
The motley crew. So and that takes us back to when it was sold, because and this is a point to raise, that when it was sold, there wouldn't have been a crew for it unless you were going to use the same Dutch crew.
Exactly. So some of them were even just hastily acquired because there were soldiers and sailors in West Africa.
Yes.
European ones. Because sometime when the ships arrived in West Africa, some of them got leave, they went on shore, and who knows?
And they had a lot of forts. And tough, they had a lot of forts, don't they? They had
a motley crew, as you say.
Yes. So you can just imagine that they were backing and forthing, because they had the Cape Coast dungeons, they had Elmina, they had Marble, and so on. So they were literally backing and forthing. So for them just and another thing, Verena, that it's a little bit on a side, because I used to read a lot of romance books back in my day, those that come out of the UK especially. And I remember, a lot of these would be set in some debtor's jail, where people were pulled from the debtor's prison and put on these ships. These slavers, I'm realizing now, much later on, that were going into the Caribbean. My very special guest online is Professor Vereen Shepherd. We're talking this morning about the Zong. 1781, a mass murder happened on one of these slavers, which we call slave ships, but we're learning now to correct the language. So these are slavers. The Zong that was heading to Black River. A mass murder happened, a massacre happened. It landed in Black River on December 22. We're talking about that. We're getting to Black River. So, Prof, sometime in the journey, this was now, where we're now, November we're in now?
So we're now at when they get back on course for Black River, having gone, veered off course to Tobago. But they veered off course again before reaching Black River, because they veered off course near Haiti. And they lost time there and then got back on the course for Jamaica. So
this captain isn't interesting about the captain. So who was captaining the ship?
Luke Collingwood, but they say he was an inexperienced captain, And as we said before, the crew was hastily assembled. Some of them already, most of them already in the area of Ghana.
I read that he was a surgeon.
There was a surgeon on the ship. So
Collingwood himself
was not the surgeon. The chief mate was James Kelsall. Collingwood was the captain, but there was also a surgeon.
Okay.
On the ship, and there was also a free person, Robert Stubbs.
A passenger. Somebody used
Robert
it.
Stubbs. When Collingwood fell ill, Robert Stubbs had to take over the ship, and he was a former slaver captain anyway, so he would have known how to fit in, you know.
So Robert Stubbs was a passenger, like a cruise ship situation he was on in a female.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Wow.
So I don't know why he was coming to Jamaica. So,
right,
but that I have not been able to research sufficiently. So, but it interests me. Who was this Robert Stubbs? You know?
Yes.
But he was a former. He wasn't in that job right at that time. He was a former.
He was a former captain.
So maybe him coming to Jamaica for some reason, you know. But there were 19 crew members, and the first mate was James Kelsall, the second mate Joseph Wood, and the captain was Collingwood. But all sources say that he was inexperienced.
Yes.
He was not surgeon on this particular ship, is what I was trying to say.
Okay.
But he was previously the surgeon on a slaver called William. Yes.
And that is another ship that was owned by the Liverpool Syndicate.
Yes, yes, as well. Yes. So after they managed to get back on course, after veering off course near Haiti, they got back on course. But by then, of course, because the journey is so long now, there were complaints of water shortage and illness and death among the crew, and poor navigational and leadership decisions. So there was a general air of confusion on this journey. And added to that, by the end of November 1781, about 62 Africans died from diseases and malnutrition. So the death rate became higher. You know, it was about. In fact, the mortality rate on this ship was 53%, way above what we have been told was the average. You know,
yes,
which was between 10 and 20%.
So this is a death ship from. You know,
exactly.
Before, and you mentioned how long the ship would have been in Accra, even when it was impounded. And enslaved Africans would have been on that.
So we're talking about, a death rate of 53%. It wasn't the highest, but it was high for that stage.
Yes.
Of the trafficking. Yes. But it wasn't the highest because 1732 we had the San Michel with a 96% mortality rate. And there was one called the Providence to Jamaica. All these are to Jamaica that I'm talking about.
Yes.
81%, the Alpine 70%, the East India Merchant 70%. So these are high death rates on the ships to Jamaica. And this one, not the highest, but high enough. It should not have happened. So 62 dying from diseases and so on. And I'm assuming there's nobody has said that, but I am assuming that the 244, these 62 must have come from the 244.
And that's what I was alluding to earlier when I said how long it would have been in port, because to think, the conditions there, and as you said, how long they were there, nobody even knows.
Nobody knows how long they were there, but we know that they were 5 months there longer.
Yes.
Than when they were put there.
It's a heart-rending
They said that everything about this journey was just terrible, and water short, ration short. That's what they claim. So the decision was taken then to jettison some of the Africans. So I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yes, go ahead, because we have another 5 minutes before we go to another break. Although, I suppose I can't do that because these are sponsors. But all right. So, but the thing though, Vereen, I don't like the word jettison.
Yeah, well, why we use jettison? Because it shows the crime.
Okay.
But we also use deliberately drowned.
Yes.
Murdered.
Yes.
Yes. But from the legal point of view, they argued that. So if we're not talking about it, so let's forget the legal term and say they were murdered. Because that's how we call massacre. That's why we talk about the Zang massacre.
Yes.
It was a massacre. And you're quite correct to say that.
Yes.
It was a murderous plan that they
What was the plan? What was, and the crew captain and crew conceived of a murderous plan. What was the plan?
Yes, because they call them together and say, what we're going to do. If we don't do something, they said, we're going to threaten the profitability of the journey. Because apparently, during that period, right, they had to try to reduce the losses from the owners. Mm-hmm. So apparently, if the voyage, if people died by natural means, right, mm-hmm. the insurance would not count those people. Mm-hmm. So they're not.
So you can't claim insurance money if the enslaved African who you hijack and kidnap and have there died of all of that. You call that, they call that natural means.
Exactly. And not only that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they said, well, you know, that's the fault of the people who the crew. You didn't pay enough attention. These people are casualties of this of the journey, so we're not paying insurance on them. However, if they could claim that they had to save the voyage. I don't want to call it voyage, you know. I don't want to call it. The illegal kidnapping and shipping.
Yes, I know the difficulty you're having, Professor Verinsha, but I'm not lying to you. I'm having the very same one.
Yes, so, trying to find the words that means something more to us than to them, you know?
Because this isn't a cruise ship. This is not a voyage.
It's not a cruise. It's not a voyage. So it's a journey of this, you know, slaver.
Yes.
So if the slavers, if the people who own the ship, captain and so on, and the owners can prove that to make a profit, then let us say, they had to take a certain action so that the insurance companies would pay, and we have seen this on other ships, by the way. You know, so. So that's what they decided to do.
But you know what I'm wondering?
They didn't want to threaten the profitability of the journey. They didn't want any more enslaved Africans to die.
Yes.
So they decided that since they're not people, according to them, these are not people, it is cargo. So if they can claim that they had to lose some of the cargo to save the rest of the
rest of them.
I don't know. The rest of what?
The rest of the crew, and the crew wasn't
of their illegal action.
Yes.
Then they could claim insurance.
All right. So to back up just a minute, because I'd interrupted you. One of the reasons, or the main reason why they're having this conversation is that so them went off course twice, but by the time they're trying to figure their way back now to Black River, which is where they're heading, they notice that there is that water run out and so on. So they right, this is what they claim, that they had no water. They didn't have enough water.
They didn't have enough water for crew, for the people on board, who they didn't call people, and they didn't have enough rations.
Yes, and our students must understand that they were referring to us, to Africans, enslaved Africans on that slaver, and that's what you call that slave ship, on that slaver, as cargo. As cargo, so they didn't see them as human beings.
That's right. Right. And so the chief mate, according to what the chief mate said, he was Colonel James Kelsall. During he had to make a deposition about this when it came to court. He outlined how Collingwood met with the crew to outline that murderous plan. So, according to what they planned, and they put in operation at 8 p.m. on the 29th of November 1781, they drowned 54 enslaved Africans, mainly women and children. They dragged them from below deck. They took off the shackles from the women and the children, and they heaved them from the ship through the cabin window, one by one. Through the cabin window. Awful.
Yes.
Then 2 days later, on the 1st of December, 42 men were thrown overboard, handcuffed and in irons from the quarterdeck. You see?
Yes.
They unshackled the women and the children because they figure them can't fight back, or which is not true, by the way, because we have evidence that they did on other ships, slavers fight back.
Yes.
But the I guess they are thinking that they can't swim back on board or something.
And they were throwing them out one by one through small ports, through windows. So I suppose they unshackle them as they put them out.
Yes.
You know?
But on the other hand, they had to do they did the same thing with the men in terms of throwing them one by one overboard from
but
the
they kept on the chains.
And put them in iron, right?
And Vereen, let us stop a minute, Prof, because you're talking, they're doing this to people who are alive.
Yes. No. And when you say that, I'm reminded that they routinely threw people overboard, but bodies, dead people.
Mm-hmm.
They would routinely throw them overboard if they died. Because, even though in this case some of the dead people who died from diseases and so on, the dead Africans, were still on board the ship when it arrived in Black River.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, they would throw them overboard if they died.
Mm-hmm.
But these are human beings. These are live people, men and women, or ancestors
and children.
And so the 1st of December now, if we want to track it, 42 men were thrown overboard, handcuffed and in irons from the quarterdeck. And then a third batch, 38 murdered later on. Now, for us it's important to know that they struggled, Many of the Africans struggled. And that's why the crew tied iron balls to their ankles to drown them. And
they would have been resisting in terms of the physical, but also vocally. So people, they would have heard each other. Those below deck waiting to be murdered would have heard those who were being murdered.
And in fact, because of that, 10 men threw themselves overboard in what has been described as an act of defiance.
Yes.
They say, all right, I see what you're all doing.
Yes.
You're not going to push me.
Right.
And of course, on other journeys, Africans, threw themselves overboard rather than endure the conditions on board and so on. And it's uncertain life. So, and one man, Professor Walvin tells us that one man, he must have been among those who initially were unshackled, in the first lot. Scrambled back on board to plead with the crew to stop the killings.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. This vexing issue that we have to unpack this morning.
And hopefully we can also at least spare 2 minutes to talk about what we have done to honor them.
Yes, of course.
Because you and I were in the trenches in 2007.
Yes.
Trying
in
to do something.
Yes, which was done, and we'll talk about that. All right, Puff. So here we are at the place where a decision was taken to murder. It looks like it's about half of the enslaved Africans.
Yes, and it didn't stop there, because after that 38, and this one man scrambled back. He was pushed back out, of course, because they didn't listen to him. And 36 more died before the ship reached Jamaica. So we're talking about a high death rate, which is what I said before, that, it was really a high death rate. And when it arrived, it had 208. Remember, we are saying that an outside number of 470 would have embarked, or would have been put on board forcefully.
Yes.
So, no, again, why Black River? Some people have asked me, Black River, but I didn't know ships arrived at Black River. No, remember, it's a comparatively large island, it's Jamaica. And while the majority were put on ashore at Kingston Harbor, many other ports around the island were used, right? And Black River could accommodate the slavers. So, and it was, for them, it was considered easier than having to have carts from Kingston transporting Africans to the west. So those who would have disembarked, forcefully put ashore at Black River, would have not necessarily stayed in St. Elizabeth.
Yes. But
in fact, the Cornwall Chronicle says that by the 9th of January 1782, 200 of the survivors had been advertised for sale, right? And so they were sold to plantations from Trelawney, Hanover, St. James, St. Elizabeth. So 208 only arrived alive, you know, which means that the mortality was like 232 or something like that. And, you know, it just was, you know, they were advertised for sale. Now, again, there's controversy over the date. The Professor Eltis, who has done something called slavevoyages.org 2.0, 2018, he says the 28th of December is when it arrived. But James Walvin says 22nd. So we had been using 22nd, but it doesn't matter. You know, what happened.
We know it was towards the end of December, between the 22nd and the 28th.
Exactly.
So either way.
So this is a tragic, really tragic, you know, happening in Jamaican history. It is of global concern. And what I want to say is not the first time they had pushed people overboard.
Right. And that's a question that we must raise in this space is, was this unusual, or was this more or less the norm?
I think it was the most tragic that we have read about in terms. Well, in terms of the action of just deliberately throwing live people overboard. But, you know, in 1819, there was a case on a French ship called La Rodure, or the Prowler, when they threw 39 blind Africans overboard.
So I wonder if they were blind before they kidnapped them and brought them on board.
No, they contracted a disease.
Yes.
They call it an outbreak of ophthalmia. Which causes blindness. Sometimes temporary, sometimes permanent. So the captain feared that the blindness would become permanent, and he said that blind slaves would be difficult, if not impossible, to sell. Enslaved Africans who were blind. So he just threw 39 of them over the rails to their watery death.
And so I will see, as you're pointing out, the Zong, we're talking about over 200 people that they would have killed.
I think it's the greatest tragedy in terms of deliberately throwing people overboard.
But to note also, Prof, how does this fit in with the insurance claims now that you mentioned earlier? What's interesting, though, is at what point did the syndicate, the Gregson syndicate, the Liverpool syndicate, insure this ship? That was...
Yes, so because they didn't leave Liverpool with this Zong, you know, they left Liverpool with other ships.
Okay.
So this must have been, I mean, they had a network, you know.
Well, yes.
Yes, so they would have insured it once they acquired it.
Right. And how were they insured? Each enslaved African was insured to the tune of what?
£30 per head. £30 sterling per head. Because you know how we know that. If you were back to the insurance claim, it says that the insurance initially taken out of the ship included £8,000 sterling for the captives alone, and that's about 30 £30 sterling per enslaved African. So we do, this comes out at the trial.
Yes. Okay.
They were claiming for the loss of quote-unquote property, the dead enslaved Africans, and the insurance taken out, we know now, initially taken out on the ship included 8,000 for the captives alone. It would have been higher for like the the shape and the whatever, but on the captives, £30 sterling per head. And
all right,
those who were sold in Jamaica were sold for about 36 per head, and then on over 100 again pushed to their death.
And it's interesting, because we must talk about our Africans who are dying on board from diseases, because it's the conditions in which they were forced.
Conditions were horrible
to live. And then you talk about malnutrition.
Yes, it's just a horrible story. And when I hear that song, I also remember Aitawe with his song Overload. Which
yes,
so
I wish I had that. I'm going to check it to see if
of what happened. You know, it's just, you know, I applaud our artists, Pablo, and the historians who have written, artists who have painted, poets like Norbracy Phillips who have captured it in poetry, you know, using all means necessary to ensure, you know, film.
Yes.
That we don't forget. And the horror, you know, this was one of the most horrible ones, I think. But I can't forget also reading that on Thursday, the 30th of May 1795, I'll just read it from the Royal Gazette, another newspaper in Jamaica. On Thursday, an inquest was held on the corpse of a Negro, which had been thrown ashore between two wharves at the west end of Port Royal Street. The jurors were of the opinion that the body had been slung from a Guinness ship, and the coroner took their verdict accordingly. So many times we read about our ancestors. And I want to mention also, because we are hearing about the Dutch government wanting to apologize to Suriname
tomorrow,
and those countries which I call colonies, but they call overseas territories. I call them colonies. No, I want to say clearly, those are not the only victims of what the Dutch did, because I recall how if those of us who watched Enslaved with Samuel L. Jackson will remember all the other instances they gave of ships committing dastardly acts, and the Dutch ship, the Lucerne, sank with more than 700 Africans, deliberately sealed in the hold before the captain and the crew abandoned the ship. They got into difficulties. They didn't want to release the enslaved Africans, 700 of them. They sealed them in the hold, and then the captain and crew jumped ship and left the 700 Africans to die. So I want to remind the Dutch in this space, you have a lot more to answer for than Suriname and your Dutch colonies.
Exactly.
And they should take more time with this apology, because they are going to get more criticism than praise for this apology. I have said it, and I won't take it back.
All right. We agree with everything you said there regarding that apology that is supposed to come up tomorrow, actually, the 19th. The Netherlands apologizing for its role in slavery, but not really. You know, as you heard, Professor Barry,
and not committing to reparation in the way we are saying reparation.
All right, so Prof, let us now look at this murderous act within Caribbean waters when you think of it, because you're seeing Jamaica, you're seeing Tobago, you're seeing Haiti. So you're in Caribbean waters. This murderous act. Oh
you're
boy.
Right.
This would have remained, as Walvin has said, a secret. A murderous secret, just another one with some of those you named earlier, where others were thrown overboard. Had it not been for the audacity of these narcissistic sociopaths who then turned around to claim insurance on those that they had murdered. Helbert, talk us through that claim.
Yes.
Yes.
Let me say, first of all, that as you know, I'm not a lawyer. So the intricacies of the legal case, I can't argue. I can only say to you that at the end of the dastardly act, the owners dared to claim insurance, and they wanted to claim insurance on the people they had pushed to their death. Right? So the initial case was heard in Guildhall in March 1782, where Gregson argued that the Zong had not had enough water to sustain both crew and the enslaved, and therefore they had to make a decision to drown what they call, to throw overboard those they call cargo, but we know that was not so. So the insurance underwriter was Thomas Gilbert, and that is why the case was called Gregson versus Gilbert, right? And so Thomas Gilbert, the insurance underwriter, disputed the claim, saying that the Zong because they had to take evidence from the crew that survived, that the Zong had 420 gallons of water aboard when it reached Jamaica, and people went on board to inspect it and take an inventory. And also, apparently, rain fell along the journey. In fact, the day before they started to throw people overboard, apparently there had been a shower of rain. So the insurers, and by the way, I'm not applauding the insurers. Let me just be clear.
Point to be made.
Imagine that there was a business of insuring people.
Yes.
I condemn them also.
And I want to get to them. And I know as a historian, you can help us to understand who were some of these people who
Lloyds
were...
of London.
Lloyds of London.
Lloyds of London. They insured, slavers. So they had come out to apologize, but nothing has happened since then because we're not holding them responsible.
So we're getting these apologies. I think they have realized, as the Netherlands and Lloyds and a lot of what we see happening in the United States, that apology gets you in the newspaper and so it's a gaslighting.
Yes, but there are not enough in the movement.
Yes.
If there were enough of us, if the whole island of Jamaica, for example, was on board of this, looking at these tragedies as evidence for reparation, if there were enough of us, we would be in a movement and they could never escape. But there are not enough of us. But anyway,
I agree. But there's a critical mass and we continue to do what we do. All right, so Pop.
So we have to do what we have to do. The Center for Reparation, I saw somebody saying that the Center for Reparation Research should do more than put this information out because we're going to publish a pamphlet. I say to those people, you in your corner do what you can do.
Yes, everybody has their purpose.
That's right. Our mandate is to research and engage in advocacy, public education, which we are doing. Other people who are artists and so on, make song, paint, write poetry. Do something.
Singers and players of instrument
is what I'm saying.
And activists and whoever you are. So listen. So
anyway, the insurance underwriter Thomas Gilbert disputed it. Said there was water when the inventory was taken on the ship before the people were put on ashore, and that rain fell.
And just to back up a bit, just to remind our students listening that this was raised because the Liverpool syndicate, Gregson, they were arguing that they threw these Africans, that they massacred these Africans because they did not have enough water.
That's right.
So that
for everybody.
Right. So then if rain did fall, then it means that you'd have at least collected water.
Yes, and then because when the ship arrived in Black River, as I said, whoever went on board to take the inventory said 420 gallons of water was on board.
Right.
So despite this, the jury in 1782 under William Murray, the Earl of Mansfield, who was the Lord Chief Justice of the King's Bench, at his direction, in 1782 in the first trial, he found in favor of the owners, stating that the insurers were legally bound to pay compensation to the syndicate for the loss of the 132 Africans. Because remember, it's 122 they pushed overboard and 10 jumped rather than they pushed. There's 132. Now, the insurers appealed the case in 1783. And Lord Mansfield again presided over the highest court in Britain on between the 21st and the 22nd of May of 1783. And among those who testified was Great Britain's Solicitor General Justice John Lee, who claimed that property, not people, had been thrown overboard the Zong. And I think a lot of us know the famous quote from this John Lee, but for those who have never heard it, Cabo, I think I should read it.
Yes.
Because he's reported to have said, what is this claim that human people have been thrown overboard? This is a case of chattels or goods. Blacks are goods and property. It is madness to accuse these well-serving honorable men of murder. The case is the same as if wood had been thrown overboard. Face the man, out of order, racist.
And it goes to the heart then. But what it does for us, though, and I'm going to take a quick break and come back, is that this is also, it goes to the heart of the reparations claims, you know, as far as I'm concerned. So we had the claim, the argument in court that was an insurance claim with the argument in court that, you know, these weren't even humans that were thrown overboard. Lord Mansfield himself. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, talk to us about Lord Mansfield, because he said something in that trial that you mentioned in this space before when we had this conversation.
I mean, everybody talks about him as bringing justice to freed blacks in England in
please.
72.
Oh, well, anyway, I don't, well.
But
my own views on that.
In this first case, he said that the case before the jury was whether it was necessary that the Africans were thrown into the sea, for they had no doubt that the case of slaves, I hate to use that word, but I'm quoting, was the same as if horses had been thrown overboard.
This is Lord Mansfield.
Yes.
This is the Lord Mansfield.
We have to realize that by the time the case came back again, right? Olaudah Equiano.
Yes.
And Granville Sharp and other anti-slavery activists had heard about it.
Yes.
And so I believe the judgment that was eventually given, so the insurance didn't have to pay because they ruled in favor of the
program. And I got up, you know, from one of my dining table and look out through the window, you know, upon the sky. And I said to myself, what if, when we were reading Equiano in literature, we were guided, or that we had gone off on our own research on who really was Equiano.
Yes.
Because he came up in the literature. We had the stories, we were reading from his diaries and so on, but it meant nothing. We could not connect him back to anything.
No context to what you were reading.
No context. We would have known about the Zang.
Yes. Well, in my time, remember I went to school long before you.
Yes.
We didn't learn about, we did slavery, but not in any detail. And I remember one of the teachers got annoyed with me because I said, how you know that? And South African tell you so?
No, I needed to laugh.
I'm sorry. And that's when I became interested in history from that teacher anyway, because at least she was teaching about slavery. But the context, it was just like, you know, a normal class. It didn't have emotion, and they were just saying those things, and I'm saying, what's the evidence? What is your evidence?
Yes.
But who tell me to go ask what is your evidence as a child?
Oh, goodness.
And that's why I think I've become a historian. I wanted to know where they find this information, and is there more to what I was being taught? You know? So context is important.
It's very important,
because everybody, you realize that Granville Sharp has gotten more attention than Equiano in this case.
Yes.
Yeah.
So much about Granville Sharp.
But Equiano was important in bringing the case to the attention of Granville Sharp and other anti-slavery activists.
Sharp himself was at pains to point out that this was brought to his attention by Equiano, and how closely they worked together.
Yeah. We need to a lot of times, and you know that we have been in the business of highlighting the icons of the anti-slavery movement, including those on the ground. In fact, more importantly, those on the ground in the Caribbean, because they never stopped. They didn't have to hear about the Zong to fight against slavery. We know that from the moment of capture and shipment. In fact, in Africa, there was resistance. On board at the barracoons, there was resistance. On the ship, resistance. On arrival, resistance. So they run away, some of them.
Yes.
And from,
And what I found interesting, Professor Shepherd, is that and I think it's in Walvin, I'm not so sure, so let me just say that he references how, in talking about the Zong, how the crew would have been briefed on every slaver, and just from that briefing, and I don't think he went there, but just from that briefing, though, the inference from that is, okay, so then resistance was the norm on these slavers, because if the crew were briefed that,
Yes.
listen, you have to put up a wall right here, sir.
Exactly.
You're gonna have to go through this little point. And you can't take your eyes off the women who you're raping. Because once you've sexually assaulted them, they themselves are going to turn around and take knives or spoons or whatever from your space and hand it to the males, and then because if you I read that and I said, but basically what this is saying is that it's evidence of resistance on these slavers that
because if you're
we
going to take those measures,
yes,
on every single slaver, it means
yes,
that you're not going to have a smooth journey. You are going to have to become a non-human, because they themselves became non-human. They are the ones who became non-human. Because to do those dastardly things.
Yeah, how do you become what you weren't born as? You are who you are. These are devils. Yes. Sorry if there's such a thing.
So the apparently another trial was even ordered, like an appeal, but Walvin said it never took place.
Yes.
But what we know is that the owners lost the case.
All right. So that is the point to underscore, is that there was a first trial where it's a jury trial. The jury was what them call the word that the judge to the jury, but instructed the jury, and the jury came back with the verdict that the insurers should pay.
Yes.
So Lord Mansfield was very much involved in that because he instructed the jury, and then so there was an appeal by the insurers, as you pointed out, and you're saying this is not because they were good; it's because they just didn't want to pay out the money. So there's nothing they did that was especially great, because they were insuring Africans as cargo anyway.
Yes. Because prior to 1783. There were various test cases surrounding the legalities of African chattel enslavement, and that took place under English law. And for a while, the legal community had endured the what you call the metamorphosis of the quote-unquote Trover principle in law, which at first held that Africans were infidels, therefore property.
Yes.
And later it was held that Africans were no longer chattel enslaved, but their rights were limited to that of a villain. And there were many cases involving that. So, when Mansfield presided over the case, he would have been renowned for the Somerset case, but at the same time, in this particular case, he ruled that they weren't property and ruled in favor of the insurers.
Yes, and he himself had said that the Somerset case was misunderstood. That people it didn't go far either, because while for him it was a singular thing, the Somerset case. It wasn't precedent. They couldn't use it in America.
And then in the first trial, now the issue was that the Liverpool syndicate should pay a sum of £3,660 to the owners.
That
insurers should pay the Liverpool syndicate.
How much? How much?
A sum of $3,660.
$3,660.
Yeah, because the issue was whether the act of throwing enslaved Africans overboard due to a lack of water supply was an absolute necessity to save the others. And so that's what happened. But the appeal in 1783 may heard other perspectives.
Yes. And in terms of so you mentioned that they lost the Liverpool syndicate, Gregson's, that they lost the case, and you also said that there was no second trial.
No, there must have been a second trial, because but when what Professor is saying, Richardson, is that there was an appeal even to the second case.
Oh, okay.
That's what he seemed to be saying.
Okay.
But there's the end result is that, as far as we know,
yes,
no insurance
was paid.
Payout
And Professor Shepherd, we're gone way over time, and you're not.
Yes, I realize.
You're not complaining. I hope you don't have anywhere to go, because we just. I'm doing one final segment, if you don't mind.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Easy. Well, I mean, Sunday mornings is listening to Running Africa anyway.
Yeah, so brilliant.
This is your time.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Because we want to wrap this up, because especially for our students, our younger people, and even for adults who are listening, who have never heard of the Zong, because we know many people have never heard of the Zong, never heard that this took place. Yes. All right, so...
But we could talk about what we do with this, this memory.
So all of this, so this is where I want to go now. So so this is 1780s. It's a dastardly, as you said before, act. It's a murderous act played out in the courts in England, but slavery continued.
Slavery continued. But the thing is, based on the activism on both sides, on all sides of the Atlantic, let's say, Olaudah Equiano, Otoba Kogwana, Granville Sharp, all of them, the fact that no insurance was paid out, I think, was like a moral victory, right? Because for these activists, this is a case of moral justice versus commercial law. And an opportunity to showcase the massacre of hundreds of African human beings as murder.
Yeah.
So the case, I think, weakened the normalization to dehumanize Africans. And I think it strengthened within the British society the moral compass. And so, of course, there was no prosecution of Gregson for murder. Right? But nevertheless, it is quite clear. This is 1783.
Yes.
If you look across the Caribbean, you see how many wars of resistance we know of. Between 1783 and 1831-32. I mean, 1824, we know that one in Hanover.
Yes.
We know 1824... 1823 in Guyana, 1831 in Antigua. But there were so many across the region. It became unstoppable.
Yes.
The fight for redress, the fight to end the trafficking was unstoppable. And that's why in 1807 Britain was forced to pass the act which said no more trafficking in enslaved Africans. But what I find so hypocritical is how Britain acted after that. As if they were the great anti-slavery nation. And then having ships patrol the seas to seize slavers owned by other nations that were active in the trafficking of enslaved Africans. We know it was an economic reason for that.
Yes.
They didn't want the competition because now they're not using enslaved Africans in the same way. In other words, they don't have the supply. So they are like the moral compass of everybody else going and seizing slavers using their navy. But what was happening in Jamaica at the same time?
That's the point. What was happening in these so-called British territories, and in where Britain had now, when slavery was still happening, wasn't it?
Exactly. Because and after 1807, they turned on women. If you think about it, women became the price of enslaved African women went up. They now used African women both for production and reproduction, trying to still have slavery, but they know they couldn't buy any more from Africa. So women now were looked upon now as these carriers and reproducers of the enslaved population, and they refused. This is what we know from history, that no matter how they increased the rations for women, started to give them better diet, making those who were a certain age free, the women of reproductive age resisted through the womb. They never wanted to collaborate with the plan of the British to have them bear the burden of reproducing the enslaved population, and so slavery took another turn.
What a depraved thinking.
Yes.
It's hard to even wrap my head around.
Yes.
But this is what happened. Let us go then, Prof. To all right. So I hear you making that connection between that publicity and that outrage, public outrage about what happened on the Zong, and how that further impacted a public response to slavery. So there was a direct connection, you're saying, to abolition and then and also to resistance. Okay.
In Britain, it never stopped in the Caribbean, but it intensified in Britain. Because when church groups and so on were confronted by this kind of brutality and immorality,
yes,
a lot of women, British women, became more involved in the whole campaign and so on. So now you have a joined up movement, a more intense joined up movement between what is happening in the Caribbean and what is happening. And so the fight now turns towards complete abolition of chattel slavery.
Yes.
So it was the only stepped up action to end the trafficking, but that morphed into the intensification of the fight to end the system itself. But I want to make 2 points, Cabo, if you allow.
Go ahead.
I want to go back to the way in which the British Navy was patrolling the seas to capture those slavers owned by other countries, or even by the British themselves, individuals who were going against the law of their own country to stop it. For me, and I think those who are able to should go to slavevoyages.org. Just put that in your search engine and look at what happened when the ships were seized near the coast of Africa. When they were seized, they had to be put ashore at Sierra Leone, and they were taken to court in Sierra Leone to explain why they were involved in the shipping, and they had to declare who were on board. This is when we have seen the largest number of names of our enslaved Africans and directly where they were coming from. It is an appalling bit of evidence. If you see the age, they have to say the gender, where they came from, where they were going, what are their names, and what are their ages.
Yes.
Cabo, I shed tears when I saw the first list.
Wow.
When you see the ages, 2-year-olds,
yes,
3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. So between 2 and 18. And then when you look at the adults, 70-year-old women, 65-year-old men. Think of your grandmother, right? What were they doing? But you see, they were going further and further south to capture. They were capturing just anyone who they could find because they had to make a quick shipment to make a profit and get out. So that's further evidence that gives us names, ages, and where in Africa they exactly were picked up from. And is a resource for all schools.
Yes, and I really do hope that schools, young people, and adults, so you're listening, please go to the site. Rwanda is the architect of genocide in the DRC through the Rwanda-backed Movement Do 23 Mars, M23 militia. So they've gone on to seize control of Uvira, which is the third biggest city in the mineral-rich Kivu provinces. Jamaica has entered into an agreement with Rwanda. November 13, 2025, JIS reported that The government of Jamaica will be implementing an integrated electronic case management system so that justice can be delivered in a timely manner that benefits the people. This is according to Delroy Chuck. The keynote address at the contract signing for the commencement of the design, development, and implementation of the integrated electronic case management system. And this was at the ministry on November 12. They're doing this, they say. The system is being put into operation in conjunction with the Rwanda Cooperation Initiative, with support from Global Affairs Canada and the United Nations Development Program in Jamaica. With Rwanda, Jamaica is on the wrong side of history in many ways. Many ways. Rwanda and Kagame, of course, you know, we talk about Kagame in this space all the time. The reason why we are so upset about this and why we're so concerned about what Jamaica is doing is that Rwanda is the known genocidal force in the region on the continent of Africa. That when we talk about genocide in the DRC, when we talk about Congo, we cannot talk about Congo without talking about who are the main perpetrators of the violence against women and children, the vicious, massive murder, rape, and all of that of women and children. And it is M23. But M23 is Rwanda. When we say M23, it's almost as if we're saying it, you know, in a vacuum. But when you say, you might as well just say the Rwanda-backed M23. It's a better way to describe this. So this is the situation. Jamaica is in a serious partnership with the most genocidal country on the continent of Africa, Rwanda. And Jamaica's carried Rwanda to Jamaica to help to build Jamaica's justice system. Rwanda is putting judges and lawyers in prison. Activists are being imprisoned. Journalists are being imprisoned. And Jamaica is in partnership with Rwanda to improve Jamaica's justice system. This is the irony of the century. And it is a slap in the face of Jamaicans. And all the opposition leaders, especially women, attorneys, especially women, lawyers, etc., those who are now in exile. Let's go to China. I don't know if you've seen the information coming out of China that China's first fully implanted wireless brain-computer interface has completed its first clinical trial in Shanghai, giving new hope, it says, to a patient with high-level paralysis. After the surgery, the patient was able to move a computer cursor using thought alone. Been kind of focused on Neuralink and Elon Musk with the brain-computer interface. China was way out ahead. So we're hearing now that they have the first fully implanted wireless brain-computer interface. Welcome, technocracy and transhumanism. We're still keeping eyes on Trinidad and Tobago. The Prime Minister has said that CARICOM is no longer a reliable partner. This treaty, also the peace in Gaza, we see this morning there are reports of bombing and killings in Gaza. Al Jazeera is reporting that the peace is not holding. Keeping eye on the beast, the beast system, Palantir, ICE, IDF, biometrics, Gaza, El Salvador, AI targeting our children in this new global reset. Because it's one thing to analyze it to identify it, to say what it is, to watch it unfold. And quite another thing, to understand what's happening, knowing that it threatens our very existence. Order of business is food and water security, and by food, obviously land. So land, food, and water security. Our first order of business. Food security, water security, land security. Any order you take it in is one and the same. But doing that, then we are ill prepared for the fourth industrial revolution, for the 6G technology, for the 3D printing, for technocracy, for transhumanism, for the global reset, for Agenda 2030, for all of that. We are not prepared if we do not have food security, water security, and land. The last few minutes of the rebroadcast, by the way.
Well, you say that we really need to have the children knowledgeable about this issue, and also about how reparation is linked into this. And I want to remind everyone, the teachers, the students, the adult students as well, who are not in school but who want this information. The Center for Reparation Research has done a book called Introduction to Reparation for Secondary Schools, published by the University of the West Indies Press, and it was written by myself and my assistant Gabriel Hemmings. This is on the market, and this is a simple way of looking at all of including what I've just said this morning. I also wanted to stress that the brutality of the Zong did not cause the British to have any conscience about their actions in the Caribbean afterwards, because you know that from the 27th of December, we're going to be thinking about the over like 1,000 or so either killed or punished otherwise or deported because of the final emancipation war, 1831-32, led by Samuel Sharp. We also know that even after the so-called emancipation, the brutality, the racism never stopped in Jamaica. 1865 happened. 1930s happened. So we need to be realistic about the history of colonialism, what it entailed, and why it is today we're saying, for all that we now know, we need to intensify the call for reparatory justice, because these tragedies cannot go unaccounted for, and somebody has to take responsibility for what happened. So there are many reparation committees across the Caribbean. In Jamaica, we have our own National Council on Reparation. Back in 2007, so we go now to what have we done? What have we done to memorialize the victims of this song? 2007, I was chair of the Bicentennial Committee. You had your In Search of series. We were doing a lot to memorialize. Through storyboards, through plaques, through public education, your program. These stories that should not go away from our consciousness. The Bicentenary Committee, the Jamaica National Heritage Trust, the Institute of Jamaica, the Ministry of Culture at the time, collaborated on putting up a modest monument. Yes, we know it's modest, in Black River, around the same place where our ancestors would have walked off that ship, and across the road to be sold. So on that spot, there is a modest monument. I'm asking the people of Black River and the whole St. Elizabeth to protect it. I know the ministry, the current minister, has plans, and also the MP for that area, Fort Green, to make a more impressive monument and to have a landscape space. I wish them all the luck in what they're trying to do. I know the names disappeared. They were re-etched, however, by the ministry and associated agencies some years ago. But I know that people keep sending me photographs of what it looks like and saying, you know, for such a huge tragedy, we need something else. We need a whole space.
Yes.
And the storyboard to be put back, because we did put a storyboard in 2007.
Yes.
But memorializing in tangible ways, I think, is important. Maybe you and I can impress on Brother Bird to write a play.
I thought about that, you know. I thought about that in preparing for this program, that this is one of the plays.
Because I'm saying that we have to find creative ways to put this information into the public space. We do our best through these types of media, but everybody can get on board and do what they can.
And just to say to persons who are listening, because we know people... Exactly. We know people are listening from all over the world this morning. I'm getting the messages. I'm seeing you and I'm hearing you. I just so that just to say, wherever you are, talk about this in the spaces in which you occupy, the platforms that you have, whether it's a social media, microphone, music, art, whatever it is. Talk about this tragedy, this murderous act that happened, and talk about how we can memorialize this. And
the schools also can put on plays.
Yes,
you know?
Yes.
On Jamaica Day, they all have Jamaica Day. They can do something creative.
Let us remember.
With this information.
Professor Shepherd, thank you so much. We could not have let this moment, this time, every year this time. You know, when I think about the fact that all of this happened in Caribbean waters, I am still trying to come to terms with it. I'm telling you that I'm in a place this morning. We've had this conversation from time to time, you and me, but every time I'm not going to hide it. I'm just not feeling good. You know.
No, neither am I. You know, we it's too, the burden, if you care, the burden is great to bear. And when historians have to be confronted in their research with these the violence just comes up on you from the pages of the archives.
Yes.
The enslavers kept good records, by the way. Some were destroyed, but a lot have been kept in the National Archives of Britain and in other county archives. I've had to make that trek. I've looked at evidence in the Jamaica archives, in the National Library of Jamaica. It makes you sick, a lot of this. But what can you do? Historians have a responsibility to research and educate.
And we have a responsibility to stand up with historians and others who are doing this to call for, without apology, reparations.
Yes,
to stand
and
up in
apology has 3 dimensions. Yeah. It takes responsibility. It admits to the crime. It commits to non-repetition, and it commits to repair. So apology is not just saying I'm sorry.
Yeah, I meant without my apology. Yes, that I'm not apologizing for calling for reparations.
I know what you said, but I also wanted to piggyback on the issue of apology.
Yes, okay.
To make that point, because I think people keep saying, "Oh, this one has apologized. This one say I'm sorry. This one," and say I regret.
Yes.
But in terms of Jamaica and the move for reparation, we need to intensify it and ensure that we don't let people off the hook. People kind of come into our space and grin with us, and we roll out the red carpet, and those people don't even take responsibility.
Yeah, we see so much happening on the island now in terms of even the way that it appears that government is collaborating and colluding in the way that some collaborated and colluded with the enslavers, with the oppressors and the colonizers, the former colonizers, in terms of the lack of access, for example, to beaches, land ownership, those issues that we still are facing, some of these very same issues from colonial times, and we can, and I dare say from slavery. So
yes, what we are seeing in our country is a worrying level of pro-colonialism and a lack of education about the relationship between the way things are in Jamaica and the colonial period. And so unless you have an anti-colonial philosophy and worldview, then you will continue to be disconnected from how you repair our society, because there's internal repair. There's a way in which you can take internal responsibility while still calling on the former colonial powers to do what is right. But we have to understand that the legacies of colonialism are strong. We're not teaching history in our schools to everyone. And if you don't know your history, then you act in ways we are seeing in Jamaica, unacceptable ways, is how I would like to end.
Oh boy. Professor, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your work.
It's my pleasure, always available, because, history is important.
Much appreciated.
It explains the present, and we have to keep going back to history.
Thank you so much, Professor
Thank you,
Shepherd.
Kabu.
The fact that the monument remains standing is a reminder to us that even as we rebuild, we must build in to all of that the tribute to those who were so viciously and violently killed in the Caribbean waters from the Zong. And you heard all of the information this morning. I mean, we could spend some more time, I think at another time, looking at the court case itself. Very revealing. And I think I'm going to do that. To our brother Bert Samuels, I know that you have plans, Bert, and I listen again to this and heard that Prof and myself, had made the shout out to you that Sunday, December 18, 2022, to write a play as the ancestors guide you for and about this situation. Our brother, and we've got a real brilliant architect, Kamau Kambui. Kamau has, and I think when he listened to this program too, he did send us a note to say here is something that he wants to be a part of, to help to design the Zong monument, or redesigned as a Zong monument, something fitting. And he has written to me in recent times to say that he's wondering about the state of the Zong monument in terms of the post-hurricane satellite map. He says that the rebuilding process, if done correctly, will require meaningful consultations with all stakeholders in the community and the country. He says that history will show that this is not the first time the town has been destroyed. And he goes on to say, and it's destroyed by hurricanes and rebuilt. He says building back stronger and smarter requires open and comprehensive consultations and not uninformed dictatorial orders from high places. So, and he was in the US when he wrote this. All right, I think I do have Dr. Devon Taylor online. Dr. Taylor, you there?
I'm here, Kabu. Greetings.
Okay, all right. Let me just get the right one up. Greetings, Dr. Devon Taylor. How you doing?
Not too bad, Up in Steertown, looking down on the sea, which I can't go. You know what I mean? But I'm holding faith,
Let us talk about that for 1 minute. Because you're in Steertown and you're able to see which sea. Which sea you're looking at? Which part of the sea?
I'm looking at around about 6 miles of the coastline, all the way from Priory to DUNNS River.
So you have a bird's eye view, literally seeing the shape of the earth.
The whole thing with 2 massive hotel that sits directly before Steertown. I can see the entire Mammy Bay, the entire Old Fort Bay, and nobody from Steertown can access any of that coastline.
So there must be something else missing from that coastline, because this is where you grew up. So what about the fishermen? Are you able to see fisher folks boats out in?
No. Yesterday I actually took a picture with one sailboat that emerged from the hotel, one of the hotels there. It was one sailboat in the reef and the absence of fisher folks, because the fisher folks have to enter from St. Anne's Bay. And I know some of them from Steertown, they only have paddle boats and small engine, that the fishing grounds that they have been using for 100 years, they can't get to it because it's too far for, my brethren Norris to paddle all the way up here. It takes him a very long time to get up here. He does it sometimes, but it's arduous work for a 75-year-old man who's using that fishing area, right? Can no longer access it, that freely.
And this is an area that up until when from when and up until when did the people have access to it?
Well, we were displaced in 2019 in the heights of COVID. They came in and they fenced and walled off the Mama Bay beach while, the emergency orders were in place around restriction of movement. So that was an opportunity for those individuals to fence off that section that was established Mama Bay fishing beach, and they've lost it. Also, when you go to Brownlow Beach, just half a mile, there was also a fishing presence there, and they also fenced that off. That is transferred to a Chinese harbor engineering company. That was another access point for fishing community. That was also locked down. So the two entry points that the fisher folks used to use were shut down within the COVID window.
And here we are. So people are permanently locked out. But for the court cases.
Yes, the court cases, both for Mama Bay is ongoing, right? We go back on February 3rd in the Court of Appeals to continue the fight and the struggle for Mama Bay Beach, because the defendants, which is Riverland Holding Limited and Cepheus Holding Limited, have dragged the matter into the Court of Appeals, challenging the decision of the parish judge who allowed the trial to continue when they tried to throw the case out. And so their challenges the judge's decision to allow the matter to continue, and they drag the matter into the appeals court. So our community now have to travel to Kingston, to stand in the struggle for rights to Mama Bay Beach, which we are standing up and defending for the Jamaican people.
This is a serious fight. You're on the island, of course, quite a few court cases going on, but let's look at Little DUNNS River. Why is the Jamaican government, through UDC, restricting access to Little DUNNS River? That is creating harm to the vendors right now and to the citizens of the country.
That's a very good question, Kabu. It's a very good question. Because, as you know, Bob Marley Beach, Little DUNNS River was a space occupied by Rastafari, right, who would take over that space, which was part of the Belmont Estates, from in the 50s, early 60s. And so it was a space that, Rastafari used, and, that was carved out by our people. And UDC did not come into possession of a title for that space, until 2019. It's 2019 that they claim that they have titled the place and they owned it. And so there is, an attempt to displace the community for a development. It was actually published in the Jamaica Observer that the property is for a development. And it is through the newspaper that the vendors and even the country learn that this was kind of like what they're being planned. So it's a plan to displace the community there for some development that the community don't know anything about. And that is why they are really moving to get us out, to remove the Jamaican people from Little DUNNS to carry out what they want to do there.
This is a very serious thing in terms of the history, and you went back there to say this is a property, it's a space that first Rastafari, but gradually over time, people from as far as Kingston, because the access to beach is what it is, we're losing them, would go to. But I am shocked to hear that UDC didn't title this until 2019. You're talking just a few years ago. You're talking about right before COVID.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's
But UDC, but let me interrupt you for a minute, just to say, but UDC has been the one that we have always been fighting for access to that space. UDC has always been in the space, operating as if they managed or were about to manage the space. This is the point I'm making, is that UDC was always there and the fight has been going on for quite a while.
Right, but you see, the thing, and Jamaica must understand them thing, I know. You see, whenever this was part of the Belmont estate, right, and the history of the DUNNS family who control all these spaces, back in the day when all of them Bucky Master people there who did a walkway and a killway off own all of them coastal land. Some of them get them compensation from England, some of them steer all of these lands, and people just move into the space and start occupy them spaces, yeah. And then because now the government have some kind of, mechanism in place where them can take over estates that has been abandoned. And the same thing they do with Winifred Estate in at Winifred Beach. Them they take it over and now I try to push off the ones them off of Winifred Beach when the court case they come about. So them do Little Duns River on a style too, and all of the lands along the coastline from Old Fort Bay all the way into Ronald Spear. UDC now kind of drag them thing on its portfolio. Well, the government had to do it first and transfer the land to the statutory body, which is UDC. So them not really own the thing, because our people have ancient and customary possessive rights to these lands because we occupied them way before 2019 and before UDC. So when we see them cases then, I was not involved with the first fight. We should have gone there from then to really uncover the records and the history to show that they did not have quote-unquote no legal rights under Jamaican law to these lands. The people had the legal rights under the land through possession. Rastafari show clear possession. Bongo show clear possession. Clive them show clear possession. Ned Marvin Dunn, him named Dunn, his ancestors were enslaved by the Dunn family, them who control Belmont. So the brethren them control the space, but them never really go through National Land Agency, the scamming agency called National Land Agency. I want people in my port Westmoreland for know so them a come and we did if stand with you. Them come in and now take the space because you don't know what go on and what move on the back end in a government, and I saw them move. Take land and push off people and then bring in capital interests who concentrate wealth and create that disparity between the people of low socio-economic status, and we them come for, and the backs of poor people, them depend when it comes on to land. And that them a do, and land them a take.
Hold for me, Devon, hold. You are founding director of JABEM, and we're talking about beach access and the fight to land, water, fresh water, and seawater. And as we said earlier, this includes, when you go land and water, you're talking about security, you're talking about livelihoods, you're talking about our living, our lives. And we have Dr. Devon Taylor to help us through, understand some of what's happening on the island and the fight for that. Devon, one of the things that we have noticed is in recent times, and IRFM has been reporting on that we're seeing now where Little Duns River is now fenced around like a prison. Why is land around Little Duns River fenced off like a prison?
Yes, that's an escalation of the violence against the plaintiff, right? And I have to try to unpack this, because I wish I could find the footage where Matu Samuda, right, mention that the Little Duns River is not open, right, to the public during the week and only on weekends, Saturday and Sundays, right? And, in that footage, he mentioned that extortionists, allegedly are extortionists, tear the fence down to let people into Little Duns River. And so they had to secure the property. This was not securing a property. If you go there, and I'm inviting the Jamaican people, when you go there today or any day, come check for Tuesday. We'll be out there Tuesday having a rally. Look at how the property is fenced. There's not only chain link fence, right? There's not only barbed wire, right? There is razor wires. These razor wires are not only elevated right at the top of the fence, they are also on the ground. They're not only on the ground, but the razor wire them extend to the foreshore, right? The foreshore, the beach, and the rock edge where we used to walk along.
Are you
right?
serious?
Yes, I mean a picture to prove it. Them drag the razor wire. So if you and a local juby, let's say in the dark at night, you want to go up on the beach, go all that thing, you know what I mean? And you don't know, you're going to walk right in that razor wire and you're going to be destroyed. So what they have done, they have extended the fence into the head of the river, which was never fenced, right where the water enter across the road from, the side where Mystic Mountain is on, and enter, on the beach land side. That area was never fenced. All of the market vendor them in Ocean know it, the taxi driver them, truck drivers, all of the people them from Charkill Airport, Davistown and Staton when water gone, because take with the whole of Roaring River, so we can go get a bucket of water, and that's how we used to go catch the water. The man then fence the thing, Cabo, and them use razor wire. On the other side, where the Rasta man grew him thing, them put down the razor wire in the river. Right? This not normal. This not normal for a statutory body of the Jamaican government, contract an agency to fence. I don't even know if razor wire legal in a Jamaica to do that. Because when you look on the Occupiers Act and see how them thing the state, because even when you fence your place, you have to fence your place not to hurt people. And this was fenced to hurt people physically, psychologically. Okay? It was meant to hurt and destroy hope.
I am at a loss for words, because this is worse than what the enslavers and the colonizers did. This sounds worse than what Paul Bogle fought against wasn't as egregious as what you are just outlining to me. I am at a loss for words. I do not know what to say. Matthew Samuda has just been named head of the United Nations the massive environmental organization at the UN. They've got a mandate. They deal with human beings differently. We welcome Matthew Samuda's appointment to head this organization. But he's going to have to look at how the acts on the ground might be in direct contradiction to the policies of the United Nations. And maybe we should try and figure that one out.
It is alarming. It is very alarming. Listen, there are many things that we need to unpack here, because the UDC is making these calls, right? NEPA is supposed to be, dealing with the environment, right? Addressing aspect of these things. The UDC sits in the office of the Prime Minister, right? I don't even know since the election run if NEPA and the portfolio of NEPA is transferred to Matthew Samuda, who is environment and climate change and water, right? So we hear all kind of sounds coming out and the people don't even have a clarity on it. But one thing that we know that is happening, there is a violence, there's a state violence through fencing, dispossession, right? Through lockout and through suffocation of liberty of I&I people. It's real.
This is structural violence.
3 years now, yes. Them lock the place. 3 years.
How are the vendors coping after this 3 years closure? Because you're talking about from 2022.
It's been one nightmare for the vendors, right? The vendors, I mean, I can't begin to tell you. There's mental health issues there, right? Serious mental issues. They're on the cusp of total economic collapse. Them light bill not pay, them water bill not pay, and we have profit. Them can hardly provide food for them family, right? Right now, one of our members need $170,000 eye surgery, right, to deal with. And him could easily pay that when the Jamaican people come through and you know, I mean, participate in a commerce. I'm look a shop when have there, so now that leak out not happen, right? The other day, him the down there and them lock all of the gates. There are now 4 chain gates and them lock him inside or down there. And you know, Bongo is 78, going on 80 years old, and to drag himself through, you know, what I mean, the river head. Exit the property, right? I saw them treat the people them. So them economic livelihood, they have been blocked out of visitors that comes in on the cruise ship. And you can think about, you know, after Melissa, that this part of the island that was not hit so hard. This is where the cruise ship them are come now all 5-6 days a week. And Little Duns River has been economically locked out. And this is intentional. Because the minister come on it and say anything what did that go on before the election, because before the election the place was opening 7 days a week. Because we press and we press and we press, right? And we just start going on the space and them did a eat a food and them left them under the nothing. Them did a make a little bit of change and see they know all of it gone. Cruise ships come in, no tourists coming there. And the Jamaican people, wherever you are on the island, if you need a little coastal dip, because when you come at Ochi, Bay Beach, you have to pay money and have to go to B Beach. Fisherman Beach, that the violence that happened to the Fisherman Beach, and it was the same issue around cruise ship wanted to operate in a Ochi, and all of the capitalist interests them who want the whole of Ochi, destroy sailors all and take off all of the poor people them. And we see what that translates into, and them are come for Little Duns River to do the same thing. And the backs of the poor. From slavery until now, Jamaica has been built on that. And then when them done with you, them dash you to the side and no one nothing more to do with you. And that's what them are doing, Little Duns River people them. With a 3 year in a court, over 15 appearance before judge, and every time we go in there, Dr. Marcus Goff beg the judge, give them more time, and UDC lawyer turn up in a court and look and says, my instruction is no more time.
You're talking about this is a government. This is a government against the people. This is structural violence. This is a government.
Wickedness.
This is a government against the people. Hold the line for me, please. Just now, that has caused me to be very, very weak. I mean, physically weak. Anybody who knows me know that I do not sit and work. I cannot sit and work. I have been working in media for all of my life. I've never had a chair to sit down on to work. And if I've worked 20 hours, I am standing. And I know I am sitting because I am weak. And I didn't know that this thing would affect me physically, but I am physically weak. I feel like I want to throw up. I feel like I want to vomit. I feel nauseous and my head is hurting me, and I'm really feeling sick. And I'm going back to this, and I think, Devon, that Jamaica is feeling this way. I have over 25 messages and they just keep coming in, and everybody's asking the same thing. Razor wires in the water. They put razor wires in the water.
Razor wire sit in the river water, right? Trust me, you know, when the brethren them take the picture and send them to me, I couldn't believe. I'm a go there for myself and walk and see it. I mean, I ask Jamaica, come Tuesday, come stand in at the rally as we call for the end of this kind of violence against the Duns River community and Jamaica at large. Or if you make a tracks, just look and just check it. Just walk over, you know what I mean, to the western side of the property or the eastern side and look and see what you see there. Right? I mean, they also brought guard dogs, you know. There were 2 guard dogs down there against the ones them when them come in. Right? So they roll out the entire apartheid regime, instrument of brutality. Razor wire, guard dogs, double up on security, right? And then them start harass the plaintiff. We had to file 2 reports in the court, at the police station, right? Because the plaintiff, listen. Listen, I'm very sorry that it's costing you so much, pain, anger, and impact you like this. But, I was on the phone, and Dr. Marcus Goff and myself were on the phone with one of the plaintiffs. When the police actually came there, and they were going to arrest him if Marcus was not there and raised his voice that he have all legitimate rights to be on the property because he's a plaintiff. And the police, were nice in the end. They came around and they were sympathetic to the individuals. And they actually advised him that, he should not be there because he was there by himself at that time, that he needs the full support of his other plaintiff. What we need is the full support of the Jamaican people to help us to take down these systems of oppression. We can't do it by ourselves. Neither we have stand up in a St. Bay court since 2022. When them say someone was murdered outside the gate, right, from 2022, and they have to shut down and run an operation. In June of this year, a double murder occurred on the Mama Bay main road, right in the vicinity of Rio Hotel and Sandals Duns River. It never blocked no tourists and never stopped them economics to happen. And the similar kind of murder happened in outside of Little Duns River, and them locked down the space for that. So if you want to look and compare and contrast how them treat poor people and how them treat big people, it's right there in front of your face. So I have to start look on the system and see that system come after poor people. That's the violence against us. It happened through law. It happened through policy. It happened through the many, security forces. It happened all of these kind of ways. It's happened. And it target these coastal community like Steertown. We're under a perpetual curfew, a perpetual, zones. So them lock we down, them kill with dance, with party. Them are suck the life out of it to support plantation tourism and rich capital interests. That's what they're doing. And the plan is to displace, to dispossess, and take away Little Duns River from poor people. That is the plan. And if Jamaica sit down and allow this to happen, we would have been complicit in this. And we are begging you, help we. We know enough to show up. Come turn up with we in the street, man. It now go cost on the arm. 175,000 tourism workers out there. And another 300,000 who also are linked to the tourism product. And them are come after we. They only use labor exploitation. That's all we're good for. As Dr. Carlin Cooper said, we just come as burden of beasts. We never come here for leisure. We come here for work and dead. And this is exactly what's happening. Exactly what is happening. And so our eyes open up. We bring this information to you. The onslaught is happening right in front of our face. We don't have access. We don't have no rights to the sea, no rights to the foreshore. It's all permission. And this shows it. The government says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you can't go to Little Duns River. Saturday and Sunday, you can't go down there. And then them claim that, well, them liability, somebody might drop and hurt themselves and no, lifeguard. Come on. Well, there are 2 members of the Little Duns River community who are lifeguards. Assist
the people. It's a role of government. If you see something like this, then assist the people. Don't put razor wire in the water. I want to appeal to the minister. Minister Samoda, because I don't think he knows what is happening. He was just named to the head of a UN treaty body. I think it's a treaty body. He's just named
the highest one
of the highest one. He was just named to that. I don't think that he wants this in the spaces of the United Nations. I don't think that this is because this is in contravention to everything that the United Nations believe in, the policies that the United Nations espouse. So I don't think he knows as a head of this environmental treaty body. As a head of any environmental organization, or not organization, but environmental ministry in Jamaica, this is how it works. This is how the environmental ministries, over time, not just under the JLP, but also under the PNP, this is how they work. We sat and watched them take Fisherman's Beach from the people, and we couldn't stop them, and that fight lasted for some 8, 9, 10 years. So here we are. They're using the same wait them out at Little Duns River. So I want to appeal to Minister Samuda. I want to appeal to the mayor, Mayor Belnavis. Have you heard that they now have razor wires in the spaces that we have been going to since the 1980s and demand them from the 1950s? So here we are. I want to appeal to both the mayor of St. Anne's Bay, Mayor Belnavis, and the member of parliament responsible for Ocherias, Matthew Samuda, to immediately address this issue at Little Duns River. This is an escalation, and good management dictates that when you see and recognize an escalation, that you immediately intervene, because an escalation goes only where escalations go, and you're not going to be able to pull it back. Devon, what is the status of the court case?
So we're going back on January the 7th. We asked ones in and around the space to come to the court. What is going to happen there is that we file an injunction for a 7-day opening of the Little Duns River, because, you know, as I just explained, the burden, the weight that is sitting on these ones, and, you know, for them livelihood is crushing, right? And it's very, very damaging. So we're asking the court to grant the injunction so the space open up 7 days a week, right? For, you know, the plaintiffs and for larger Jamaica as a source of recreation, because this is the only spot that is left between St. Anne's Bay, right? Between Fantasy Beach and Bay Beach is the only free space that left, right? So over 4 or 5 miles of coastline, this is one spot that the Jamaican people can just walk into. And them lock it down Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and only Saturday and Sunday. You can't go beach like only Saturday and Sunday people use beach. So we're asking the court to, you know, grant us an injunction so UDC fly the gate. That will be litigated, you know, on the 7th. We are also, you know, on the 23rd, right, next Tuesday, we're just going to have a little rally. Just gather there, a gathering, right before Little Duns River, and we're asking the public to just come show solidarity.
What time?
Right? It's at 1 p.m.
Tuesday.
1 p.m. Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just come show your solidarity to say, you know, you are feeling the pain as these plaintiffs are, and as the larger Jamaicans who are divided.
Come peacefully.
Yes.
Stand with us on Tuesday.
Yes.
Yes.
On Tuesday, right?
1 o'clock,
you know,
at Little Duns
recreational
River.
Ride.
Yeah.
1 p.m. Little Duns River next Tuesday come out, right? Those are the things that we are up to the next for the next couple of days. And January comes in, you know, the case continues. You know, I mean, before the election, you know, the UDC expressed a willingness to grant prescriptive rights of access to the beach, you know.
Yes, I know.
And the river. And we were very encouraged by that. You know, we applaud the UDC for that effort. We applaud, you know, the minister for that effort. And then after the election, it's like a trick business.
Razor
the
wire.
Man them gone back in at them, see him, razor wire come up.
Yeah.
You know, statement on a newspaper say, you know, we are rob people down there and we are extortionists, you know what I mean? After 3 years, you know, you can't solve a murder, you know, to reopen if you allow Jamaicans to move. And people drop dead, 2 of them before 2 hotel, and nothing happen. You know, hear nothing about it. You can't block them, but we you come after. No, you can't do that. You can't have it those both ways. Too obvious. The government is too obvious what going on, so. So if we don't stand up against these kind of things, they will continue.
We'll leave it there. Dr. Devon Taylor, we'll see you on Tuesday.
Give thanks. Blessings.
We're going to need time. We're going to need time to absorb what we just heard. You know, the little song will say, I need time to get you out of my mind. We need time to absorb what we just hear. Because it don't sound like Jamaica. It don't sound like South Africa. No, it sounds like South Africa in the 1980s, 70s. It sounds like South Africa when apartheid was the order of business. It sounds like Gaza. It sounds like Palestine. I want to say something. Like Bedward, I want to say something. Because we look on Gaza and we say it can't happen here. We look at apartheid South Africa and we say it cannot happen here. But I want to say one more thing. We have already lost access to the sea in majority of Jamaica. For us, for we the people, the sea is not available. Even if we want to pay for going there, in many of the spaces, it's not available. We have lost access to a lot of the freshwater sources, even if we wanted to pay to access it. It's not available to us. We are not allowed. There are no signs that say this for white and this for black. But you know, if you go to Puerto Rico on a certain day, you cannot enter with your black skin. You know, if you're black and poor in Jamaica, you have no access. So Gaza is already happening because the razor wires have been put down in the water that are in the fresh water. And apartheid South Africa is well on the way because we have no access. We are going to need time to absorb this. The following is a public service announcement from the JPS. Please note that pole and power line restoration works will take place along the Pike to Troy Main Road in Manchester on Saturday, December 20 and Sunday, December 21. Significant traffic delays are expected. Motorists are asked to plan accordingly and follow instructions on site. JPS, rebuilding together, powering what matters. A public service announcement from the JPS. You're inside of the Africa Forum. This is Running African. Thank you so much for joining us inside of the forum this morning. 8 minutes. Remember, Tuesday, 1 o'clock at the Little DUNNS River. Once again, we want to welcome the appointment of Jamaica's Matthew Samuda to the election of the Minister of Environmental and he's a Minister of Water, Environment and Climate Change here in Jamaica. Matthew Samuda is a new President of the United Nations Assembly, United Nations Environment Assembly. This is a big deal. It's massive. We welcome this and we congratulate the Minister. The announcement of his election was made on Friday, December 12 in Nairobi, Kenya, during the 7th session of the Assembly. Minister Samuda led the delegation, UNEA 7, which was endorsed by the Latin American Caribbean region, and he will preside over the 8th session. The minister's assumption of this leadership role positions Jamaica and the wider region at the forefront of global environmental governance at a time when coordinated action is urgently needed. And this is news from the Office of the Prime Minister that I'm reading. And it's a 193 member states of the United Nations, is the world's premier forum for setting the global environmental agenda. The presidency carries a strategic mandate to guide policy deliberations, build consensus among diverse member states, and influence the direction of the UN Environment Program as it responds to escalating environmental challenges. It's a massive, massive deal, and we welcome this and congratulate Matthew Samuda, especially because we ourselves are fighting some of these very same issues on the island. And the fact that we've got him there means that we've got him in our corner. So at the same time, I'm saying I don't think he knows what's happening at Little DUNNS River, which is in his constituency. So Matthew Samuda, within the context of your appointment to this massive treaty body at the United Nations, please pay some attention to what's happening environmentally in St. Anne, in particular, in the areas in which you are member of Parliament, but also Jamaica nationally, because you're also the minister with responsibility for the environment, climate change, and all of those issues. And I think you're very well placed to make the difference in all of this. We welcome your appointment and look forward to working with you on some of these very issues that the United Nations deal with. We also invite you in this space to talk about your appointment and the environmental challenges being faced by Jamaica and the people of Jamaica, to include, of course, access to fresh water and to salt water.